I started plugging into who I am and studying my own humanness, I started to meet people who equally see my life path and vision. I'm so thankful for the soul friends and family who have helped me validate and present in these moments. And the ones who I've yet to meet, I'm so grateful for your assistance on my journey. One of the most notable people on my journey has been my brother. Born 14 months apart from each other, he has forever been a sounding board for scientific questions and outdoor adventures. So much so that we went to rival colleges, both studied biology, and to this day, we still have arguments about mitochondria being the powerhouse of the cell. I was an extremely inquisitive child. I mean, what 2-month-old do you know who's pondering life at such a rate? My brother, sister, and I grew up in the city country, which is 5 acres just inside the Beltway of Houston, close enough for you to see the downtown skyline. Growing up in the city country had us asking questions for our survival, such as, Pop, why is the sky blue? Or Pop, why are the birds singing differently today? I used to think that I asked too many questions until one day I asked him just that. Hey, Poppy, do I ask too many questions? And he responded stoically, if you don't ask, you will never know. And from that point forward, my inquisitive mind was validated, and therefore the gambit of questions have been forever flowing out. Learning other people's processes has always been the template in which I've created my own. As a child of a hippie lawyer and a computer scientist outdoorsman, I always approach situations asking myself, what are the rules? What are the defined parameters? What have been done to break the rules? And if fear didn't exist, what would actually be happening? My actions usually slide somewhere in between high risk and high reward. What am I willing to risk for this outcome? Studying public health through epidemiology had me asking why every single day for 4 years straight. And most times we had defined output before we had defined input. For example, unknown respiratory illness late 2019 to March 2020, COVID-19, wear your mask, socially distance. We had to figure out all the inputs to this output of sickness. So working problems backwards and forwards had me going and leading in national and international situation rooms, and also into deep transformational conversations with friends, family, and frankly, strangers. In my 27 years of living, I've found the power in asking questions until I can't answer them anymore, not deeming anything unanswerable, knowing that I can pick it up whenever I learn more information. Well, at 24, I must have forgot all of that, because at 24, I thought I was dying. I had a heart monitor and was seeing the top cardiologists and endocrinologists that my health insurance could provide. I thought I was dying. I was experiencing heart palpitations. I was experiencing deep hormonal shifts. After weeks of tests, the doctors came back to me and said, nothing is wrong with you. You're feeling tight in your chest because you're stressed. But I thought I was dying. I thought I was dying. How can you tell me that my heart is not pulsating? I'm clearly dying. I'm also here, so clearly I wasn't. But I was under so much societal and internal personal pressure that I had convinced myself that my heart was going to explode. I began getting back in touch with my family land as a way to connect with my inner self and an outlet for some of this stress. And thus my journey of becoming a farmer began. I started selling houseplants to pandemic plant parents, I know you're out there, to raise capital. And the first thing that people would say to me is, I have a black thumb. I can't get anything to grow. My tomatoes are yelling, my fiddle leaf figs, the leaves are falling off. I literally can't get anything to grow. You have a green thumb. Please tell me, what are you doing to get all of these things to grow? I would say, after the 10th time, I was like scrolling through photos, showing people, and I would say, pluck that yellow leaf, water it in a week, the plant is stressed. And bing, the light bulb went off. The 10th time, a lady came up to me with the same story. And I said, you don't have a growing problem. You are obsessed with perfection. Those leaves are yellowing because that plant needs to send water and nutrients to another place. That plant is turning brown because it needs water from another source. That is called self-perseverance. That is not death. Yet our minds signify death, while nature tells us that this is a sign of adaptability and growth. So when we think about our journeys and things that don't go right or wrong, or we get no's, or things feel like it's falling off, or we feel like we're drowning, an acorn needs 24 hours before it can even crack. I began to reflect back to 24-year-old me, swinging my legs off the doctor's table, waiting to have my heart monitor affixed to my chest. The same instance of someone looking at a plant and thinking that it's dying are the same parameters that I was viewing within myself. My job as an infection preventionist, dealing with high-stress situations, unkind management, and getting gaslit on a daily basis had truly taken a toll on my body. I was trying to grow in the wrong season and environment and calling it success. Even though it was super painful, I was growing. I had to release the fear of the unknown and believe that there was a greater journey for me. I learned this lesson when I took a trip with my fiance to Jamaica. We rode on the back of motorcycles to a town called Lethe. While in town, we stopped to watch some young men and boys play soccer. And inevitably, the soccer ball got kicked over into the jungle, and a little boy ran barefoot with a smile straight in. As soon as he hit the tree line, I held my breath, as if I had just seen him go underwater. Because how could he run in the jungle? Something's going to eat him. For over a minute, he was searching for this ball. And the longer he was searching, the more lightheaded I was becoming because I was literally still holding my breath, waiting for him to rustle back out. Eventually, he found the ball, popped out, threw it out, and immediately started running again, playing as if he had never ran into the jungle. After catching my breath, I stopped and asked our tour guide, "Hey, is there anything that can hurt you in there? Are there no tigers in that jungle over there?" And he was like, "Nope, there are no big cats. There's no jaguars. There's no panthers. There's not even spiders in Jamaica." Now, I don't know if that's true, but it caused me to pause and think. I thought anything on the island of Jamaica had to be brought there, from the seasonings to the animals to the people. And not only could they be brought there, they had to create ecosystem. So anything that could physically hurt you had to be given support to thrive. I reflected this concept back into my life, now thinking about it as an island. Nothing can come and hurt me unless I bring it there. Negativity can only be there unless I bring it there and allow for it to create ecosystem, reproduce, and thrive. As a scientist, we know about eradication. We know how to get something out of our ecosystem, and that takes time. However, you have to be able to name it, be able to attribute it to an issue or problem before you can make an effective change for its removal. So when I think about business life and success, I now think about it as an island. I now run into the jungle with no fear, as anything can hurt me because I have not brought it there, and therefore it does not exist. On a random day in July 2020, I wrote, "Full-time farmer, August 2020, and picked the date August 17th to either resign from my job or make a full-time commitment to my farming endeavors. Well, on August 3rd, they had me bent, and I calmly, with no fear, listening to my gut, emailed over my 2 weeks notice. And 2 days later, on August 5th, they walked me out of the hospital as if I had made no contribution to our job. I calmly walked across the glass bridge to the parking lot and never looked back, striving to focus on feeding my soul's journey and connecting my block back to nature. A few days later, I went to LA with my Lion sisters. And on the last day of good insurance, I got my wisdom teeth removed. And unknowingly, the first day of committing to Ivy Leaf Farms was Monday, August 17th. I had set myself free. On that morning, I looked up at the ceiling. How am I going to pay for this new house, selling houseplants? I didn't know. But then my phone buzzed. Zzz. Sion Rhodes from the local news station had just messaged me. Hey, do you know you're on Beyonce.com? It had officially been announced that I won $10,000 from Beyonce and NAACP on the same August 17th that I claimed in June of 2020. If you would have told me that with my heart monitor, I probably would still be in the hospital to this day. I am so grateful for that experience. But what that taught me is that choosing myself and following my innate gut feeling allowed for me to truly awaken my inner journey. And as painful and as nerve-wracking as it was, in that experience, I grew. Growth happens regardless of circumstance. I learned this from a cucumber proudly growing on Manhattan Beach, California. When I saw this cucumber, I literally screamed, because how dare it grow in this sand? Science and the Farmer Almanac will tell you that it's impossible for this cucumber to be growing, but inherent growth shows you that it isn't. That cucumber didn't need the cedar raised bed with top-tier soil amendments, worm castings, and the finest water. No, it reached its inherent growth point and did its job. Will it ever bear fruit? I don't know, but it sprouted despite the circumstance. If we believe that a cucumber seed is going to become a cucumber, a lima bean will become a lima bean, and an okra seed will produce many pods, and we are all from the same place, how can we not believe that we have everything inside of us as humans? Our growth package is already here. Only within ourselves can we unlock the outlier that is within us. I have initiated the crushing, the growth, the breaking, the soaking, and no matter the environmental or life's happenings, I am still able to grow. I challenge you as a human to know your innate humanness. What is it that makes you a better human? What makes you smile? What makes you happy? What makes you gassy? Because you really should know. What parameters are needed for your optimal growth? I used to think of growth as linear. I can't be 5'4" unless I've been 5'2". I can't be 5'1" unless I've been 4'7". I have to have a house by 25, be married by 30, have my top of my career by 40, or I'm not going to be successful. I have realized that my growth is anything but linear. I now like to think of my growth as a heat map. The hottest and hardest part is naming. Brene Brown has a concept within her book, Atlas of the Heart, where her team surveyed 7,000 people over 5 years, and they discovered that on average, people can only name 3 emotions as they're feeling them: happiness, anger, and sadness. But what about loneliness? What about wonder? What about awe? What about fear? What about guilt? As a retired public crybaby, I was standing on a bucket while my brother was kicking it, and I started crying. I have always been in touch with my emotions, but I didn't always know how to name them in ways beneficial to myself and others. If I could not name what I was experiencing, how could I fully experience it? So because I could not name my emotions, I acted out. Because I was lonely, I drank too much. Because I was unsure after graduation, I didn't shop my resume hard enough. Because I was happy, I spent too much money. All the things that I have experienced that I could not name fully, I could not get through them. But when I could finally start naming and fully feeling the emotions of my life, I started growing forward and stopped self-sabotaging my success. After we name it, we move on to shame. Because I can now name how I'm feeling about this or that, I can release the shame. I thought it was wrong for me to feel lonely after graduation. I thought it was wrong for me to love who I love. People say things like, you should be ashamed of yourself. And my response is, no, you would be ashamed if you were in my experience. I'm proud and happy with who I am. I named it and it no longer affects me. I released the shame and I no longer give it my power and my nutrients robbing me of my experience to grow. After that, we cool on off and we get on to communication. Talking is what makes us human. When we release that bottled up tension within us, we can relax and exist in it. And then we move on to the coolness that is growth. And before we know it, it's done. We grew through it. I like to think of growth like a tree with many branches. My experiences are points and leaves of things that I've already named and will continue to name as they arise in my life. The only way I can become stronger is to continue to grow more branches and leaves. I love looking at the trees. I am a certified tree hugger. Who's with me? Trees have so many lessons. They are the most selfless creatures. They shade us in the summer, what we'd like to call outdoor AC. And then they drop all their leaves in the winter to keep the ground warm. All they need is space and time. Could you imagine being this selfless? On this campus, I've had personal, transformational branching moments. On this stage, I gave my first speech to the crowd. I fell in love, or what I thought was love, many times. I got to hang out with my sister who graduated before me and hear all of her lessons about going through Prairie View. I also found out that I was not going to fulfill my mom's undergrad sorority legacy. I received my alumni pin, and on this stage, I was coronated the 83rd Miss Prairie View A&M University. And on this stage 6 years ago, to this day, I brought a program entitled PV Girls Rock, where we celebrated PV women, past, present, and future. Removing comparison, money, time, perfectionism, and shoulda, coulda, wouldas allows for me to stand and breathe in this full circle moment. Becoming an outlier does not make anyone any different than another. Those who choose to live their lives unlocking their visions, growth, and superpowers without fear tend to be the ones we look at in society as different. We all have the capabilities. We were born with them. We just need to ask why. Name and release shame. Communicate and be human. Let the trees that line the path of this university be your model. They stretch their hands out, sharing knowledge of the past. They stand confidently with their trunks in the present, while holding hope for the future. Their roots run deep, and so do yours. Thank you.